Imagine standing in front of a fortress, arrows raining down from above, your men exposed in open ground, and behind those walls, soldiers waiting for you to fail. Now imagine saying calmly, "By God, these arrows cannot stop us." That was Khalid ibn al-Walid. And what happened next changed the psychological balance of the entire Syrian campaign. Before we step into that moment, if you love powerful Islamic history told in cinematic detail, take 1 second right now and hit the like button. It may seem small, but it pushes this story to more people. Share this video with someone who loves real military history. And comment below, where are you watching from? I read your comments, and your engagement helps Islamic Conquests grow stronger with every episode. If you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter, because what's coming will only get more intense. Now let's step back into the battlefield. The fortress stood ahead, strong walls, heavy wooden gates reinforced with iron towers filled with archers. Khalid's message had already reached every corner of the fortress. This is the first stronghold of Syria. If we fail here, defeat will follow. The response from inside was arrows, dozens, then hundreds. But Khalid's answer was steady, a move the archers forward. His archers advanced under a storm of arrows, not shooting wildly, but choosing targets carefully. They focused on the gate, the towers, the exposed defenders. Most arrows concentrated above the main gate. Khalid wanted pressure where it mattered most. And the courage of the soldiers was astonishing. Some warriors reached the gate itself. Under constant arrow fire, they began striking it with axes. The gate was strong. Breaking it under such conditions was nearly impossible. Yet the confidence of the attackers began to shake the confidence of the defenders. One Muslim voice rose loudly. "There is still time. Surrender and you will benefit. If we take it by force, do not expect mercy in battle." That was not a threat of slaughter. It was a warning of consequence. And inside the fortress, fear began to grow. The elderly scholar inside had already warned them about this commander. Now his words echoed in their minds. Minutes passed, then something shifted. A white flag rose from the walls. Khalid immediately ordered his men to halt. "Stop. Warn. Let them come out and speak." The gates slowly opened. A Roman commander stepped forward with 2 or 3 local Christian leaders. He stood before Khalid, the broad-shouldered warrior, beard, thick scars visible, eyes steady. Khalid looked at him and said calmly, "By God, you are a wise man. You have saved your people and your soldiers from destruction." Then Khalid extended his hand. The Roman commander hesitated and said, "First the sword." Khalid understood. The Roman removed his sword, and the other leaders did the same. Then they shook hands. The Roman asked carefully, "Will our women, our children, our homes be safe?" Khalid replied firmly, "We did not come to take your women. We did not come to destroy your homes. We take what is agreed. If you had fought longer and we had taken this by force, this fortress would have been rubble. But you chose peace. Go in peace. Take your families. Remember, we are not here to destroy. We are here with a message." The historians mention that the Roman leaders expected massacre. Instead, they saw discipline. The soldiers were removed. The civilians remained safe. This was not common practice in that era. Armies usually looted, destroyed, humiliated. But here, something different was happening. And that difference was spreading faster than any cavalry charge. That night, Khalid camped outside the town, not inside it. He gathered his commanders and thanked God. And fear, when combined with reputation, becomes a weapon. He wore his red turban. He carried the sacred banner given by the prophet. And sometimes, historians write, he would stand silently looking at that banner, as if remembering the responsibility that came with it. He knew he was far from home. He knew Syria was powerful. He knew Rome was not Persia. Rome had structure, organization, resilience, yet his expression remained confident. That night, he told his soldiers, "A victory and defeat are in the hands of Allah. We fight in His name. We give our lives in His name. How can we repay the one who placed fear of you in the hearts of your enemies before you even arrived?" He reminded them of the responsibility of carrying the banner. He reminded them that what they were establishing was not just territory. It was tradition. a tradition that future generations would look back to. But the campaign was far from over. Khalid divided his remaining forces into 3 groups. Each would move toward different towns. This was dangerous. They were deep in enemy territory. Reinforcements were uncertain. If attacked by large numbers, they could be isolated. But Khalid calculated risk carefully. He believed speed and bold movement would prevent the enemy from organizing. At dawn, he moved toward Tadmur. 2 other commanders moved toward smaller, fortified towns. He sent a message to Abu Ubaidah: "Hold your position. Do not move until you receive my order. I am moving forward." And with that, the campaign entered a new phase, one where smaller towns would test the resolve of both sides. The deeper they moved into Syrian land, the quieter the air felt. That silence was not peace, it was tension. Khalid knew something important. The first fortress surrendered because fear had already reached it. But fear does not spread evenly. Some towns would submit, others would resist, and some would pretend to submit while preparing a trap. The 2 detachments he had sent towards smaller fortified settlements advanced cautiously. These were not major cities. They were clusters of strong homes, small forts built like miniature castles, surrounded by farmland and grazing fields. Each detachment was small. That alone made the move dangerous. If the enemy gathered in large numbers, they could surround and crush one unit before Khalid could respond. But the gamble was deliberate. Speed creates confusion. Confusion creates hesitation. And hesitation opens doors. As one detachment approached its target town, something strange happened. Instead of archers appearing on the walls, the people came out into the open. Men, women, even children. They stood with raised hands, no visible weapons. The commander slowed his advance. He expected arrows from rooftops. He expected hidden ambushes. He spread his formation slightly, careful not to enter narrow streets too quickly. One elderly Christian leader stepped forward and said, "We were told you do not harm those who surrender." The Muslim commander replied calmly, "And we were told you might attack from hiding." The old man opened his arms. "The doors are open. Look for yourselves. There are no armed men waiting. Scouts were sent. They checked the houses. No ambush, no hidden archers, only civilians." The old man explained something interesting. "Those who fled from the first fortress told us how you dealt with them. They told us you did not destroy their homes. They told us your conditions were fair." The commander made the same terms clear. "You will not attack passing Muslim forces. You will not support Roman or Ghassanid attacks against us. If our army needs to pass, you provide safe passage and basic provisions within your ability. Your lives, honor, and property will be protected. If attacked by others, we will defend you." It was not forced conversion. It was political agreement. The town accepted. This was the second place secured without major bloodshed. But not every town chose this path. The other detachment reached its destination at nearly the same time. At first, it appeared similar, civilians outside, no visible weapons. But something felt different. The soldiers noticed movement behind small fortress-like houses. They saw narrow windows positioned like arrow slits. The commander halted the advance and warned loudly, "If even one arrow is shot, you will not recognize what follows." Moments passed. Then it happened. An arrow flew. The ambush began. Men emerged from hidden positions. Some were local fighters. Some were trained soldiers mixed in. The attack was sudden but not coordinated enough. The Muslim commander had prepared for this possibility. Instead of pushing into the narrow streets, he pulled back slightly, forcing the attackers into open ground. In open ground, discipline matters. The attackers were brave, shouting, charging, trying to overwhelm, but they lacked formation. The Muslims held steady. Within a short time, the ambush collapsed. The town was taken by force. This time, war rules applied. Armed resistance was met with force. Spoils were taken, prisoners captured. The lesson spread quickly. Some towns would choose peace. Some would choose battle. But Khalid's method remained consistent. He was not unpredictable. He was clear, and clarity in war can be as powerful as brutality. As the detachments regrouped with Khalid, reports arrived of larger gatherings ahead. The Ghassanid rulers were furious. Their king Jabala ibn al-Am could not tolerate the idea that small Muslim forces were advancing steadily. He sent spies. He gathered intelligence. He learned that Khalid was approaching Damascus by a route near Marj Rahit, an area known for gatherings and trade fairs, and that is when a new plan formed. If they could not stop him at small towns, they would stop him at a larger, coordinated point. They would allow him to move forward and then strike hard. Meanwhile, Khalid paused at a high ridge known later as the Niyat al-Yukab, the Pass of the Eagle. From there, he could see the green land stretching toward Damascus. Historians describe him standing silently, looking toward the city. Damascus, a major center, a prize of strategic importance, not just a town, a symbol. He knew this was no longer about border skirmishes. This was now about confronting the core of Roman-aligned power in the region. Behind him stood men who had crossed burning desert, men who had fought through ambushes, men who had seen towns surrender at the mention of his name. But ahead stood something larger, organized resistance, prepared retaliation. Jabala had already decided. Marj Rahit would not be a simple passage. It would be a trap. He believed the Muslims were becoming overconfident. He believed their rapid success made them careless. He planned to gather forces quietly and strike suddenly. From his perspective, this was the final chance to crush them before they reached Damascus. And as Khalid descended from the Pass of the Eagle toward the plains, neither side fully knew how close they were to a collision that would decide the next stage of the campaign. But one thing was certain. The psychological battle had already begun. The plains of Marj Rahit looked peaceful from a distance. Wide land, open sky, a place known for trade fairs and gatherings. It did not look like a battlefield, but sometimes the most dangerous ground is the one that looks harmless. As Khalid's forces moved toward the area, reports began to reach him. Small movements in the distance, riders disappearing behind hills, unusual gatherings of men near grazing fields. This was no longer random resistance. This was preparation. Jabala ibn al-Ayham, the Ghassanid ruler, had made his decision. He would not surrender towns one by one. He would not watch his authority shrink without response. He had gathered tribal fighters, reinforced by local forces, and positioned them carefully near Marj Rahit. His plan was simple. Let the Muslims advance. Let them believe the road to Damascus is open. Then strike from multiple sides. He believed numbers would overwhelm discipline. He believed anger would overpower organization. And he believed this was the moment to restore pride. Meanwhile, Khalid did not walk blindly into open fields. He arranged his forces in battle formation before entering the plain. This was important. He did not wait to be attacked. He expected it. Rear guards were placed behind, reserve units positioned carefully, flanks extended. He knew if attacked suddenly, formation would decide survival. Sun was high when the first wave appeared. Dust clouds from the right, then from the left. Then ahead, war cries filled the air. They must not leave alive. That was the chant. The Ghassanid fighters charged with intensity. They were not timid. They were not hesitant. Many of them had heard stories of Muslim victories over Persia. Many were determined to prove that Rome's allies were not weak. The first impact was heavy. Unlike previous ambushes, this was larger, more organized. The attackers aimed to break the lines quickly. Khalid moved calmly through his ranks. He adjusted spacing. He signaled reserves forward. He ordered counter-movements instead of reckless pursuit. This was not about speed now. This was about balance. The enemy's energy was strong at the beginning. But energy without structure burns fast. The Muslim lines absorbed the shock, then slowly pushed back. The battlefield turned chaotic. Clashes in close combat, horsemen colliding, shields splintering. But what stood out was coordination. Whenever a unit seemed pressured, another shifted to support it. Whenever a gap opened, it was filled. This was not accidental. This was drilled discipline. The Ghassanid forces began to lose cohesion. Their initial fury had not broken the lines. And once momentum slows in battle, doubt creeps in. Khalid sensed it. He ordered a focused push on one wing, not everywhere, just one side. That side began to collapse. Once one section breaks, panic spreads faster than arrows. The attackers started pulling back. Some tried to regroup. Some fled. The chant of "do not let them leave alive" faded into scattered retreat. Marj Rahit did not become the crushing trap Jabala had hoped for. Instead, it became another failed attempt to stop the advance. But this battle was different from the earlier towns. This was open confrontation. This was organized resistance. And it proved something important. The Muslims were no longer just moving through villages. They were now confronting the political authority of the region. After the battle, Khalid did not celebrate wildly. He knew what this meant. Jabala would not stop here. If anything, this defeat would push him toward larger coordination with Roman forces, and Damascus was still ahead. That night, as the army rested, Khalid maintained strict alertness. Scouts were sent out. Patrols were increased. Because once you defeat someone in open ground, they either retreat far away or they come back with more. And in this case, larger forces were already forming. Damascus had received reports. The Ghassanid leadership had sent warnings. Roman commanders were gathering information. The story spreading was no longer about small desert units. It was now about a commander who crossed impossible terrain, forced fortresses to surrender, defeated ambushes, and broke organized resistance in open fields. Fear spreads. But so does determination. Damascus was not a small town. It was a symbol, a fortified city with layers of defense. And its fall, or survival, would send a message across the region. As Khalid advanced further, the distance between him and Damascus closed. But so did the distance between him and a much larger confrontation. Because what waited ahead was not a tribal charge. It was coordinated defense under imperial oversight. The road to Damascus was no longer quiet. Every village now knew the name Khalid ibn al-Walid. Some spoke it with fear, some with respect, some with anger, but no one ignored it. As the Muslim army moved closer to Damascus, the land began to change. The dry stretches gave way to greener fields. Water channels cut across the earth. Orchards and farms spread wide. Syria was rich, fertile, organized, and heavily defended. Damascus was not just another town. It was a major Roman stronghold, a strategic jewel, a symbol of control in the region. Inside the city, reports had already arrived. They defeated the ambush at Marj Rahit. They crossed the desert where no army survives. Though they do not loot when people surrender. They fight fiercely when attacked. These mixed reports created confusion. Some commanders believed the Muslims were exaggerating their strength through reputation. Others were not so sure. The Ghassanid ruler Jabala was furious. His earlier trap had failed. He could not accept the idea that a smaller force far from its homeland was advancing this steadily. He gathered what remained of his forces. He sent urgent messages. He called for stronger resistance. He believed Damascus must not fall. Meanwhile, Khalid did not rush blindly at the city walls. He paused at a high ground near the city. From there, Damascus could be seen clearly. Its walls were strong. Its towers stood firm. Its gates were reinforced. This would not be another quick surrender. Khalid's men stood behind him, tired but unbroken. They had crossed burning desert. They had survived ambushes. They had seen fortresses surrender. They had fought open battles. But now they stood before something larger, not just a fortress, a capital. Khalid ordered the army to maintain formation and caution. Scouts circled the outer areas. Supply routes were evaluated. No careless movement was allowed. He understood something critical. The closer you get to the heart of power, the harder the resistance becomes. Inside Damascus, Roman-aligned leadership debated their options. Fight immediately? Hold the walls and wait for reinforcements? Negotiate? Chaos. Pride pushed toward battle. Fear whispered caution. And while those debates unfolded, Khalid maintained discipline outside. He reminded his commanders, "We fight only those who fight us. We honor agreements, but we do not retreat from confrontation." His soldiers were not reckless. They were organized, and that organization began to weigh heavily on the defenders, because something had shifted during this campaign. At first, the Muslim army was seen as an external force, then as a desert threat. Now they were a structured military presence deep inside Syrian territory. That transformation changes perception, and perception changes decisions. Jabala attempted one more coordinated effort near the outskirts. hoping to weaken the Muslim advance before full engagement with the city. But morale was no longer fully on his side. The earlier defeats had planted doubt. Some tribal fighters hesitated. Some local leaders questioned whether continued resistance was worth total destruction. The Muslim army advanced carefully, not with chaotic charges, but with measured positioning. Pressure increased, tension rose. And in that tension, something remarkable continued to spread. The reputation of conduct. Town after town had witnessed a pattern. Resist with weapons, face battle, negotiate honestly, receive protection. That pattern was becoming known. This was not how many armies operated in the 7th century. And it created uncertainty among opponents. If surrender does not mean slaughter, the decision becomes more complicated. And if battle does not guarantee victory, pride becomes expensive. Khalid stood again looking toward Damascus. Historians describe him often calm before major confrontations. His red turban visible, the banner steady, he was far from Medina, far from his homeland, facing an organized imperial system. Yet his confidence did not come from numbers. It came from clarity of purpose. His soldiers watched him. Leaders influenced morale without speaking. And his steady presence strengthened them. The campaign had already proven something powerful. Speed matters. Discipline matters. Reputation matters. And belief, when combined with strategy, creates momentum. As Damascus prepared for what was coming, one truth became undeniable. This was no longer a series of random clashes. This was a campaign reshaping the balance of power in Syria. And whether Damascus fell quickly or resisted fiercely, the direction of history was shifting. The suspense we began with, arrows raining down, gates shaking, fear spreading, now reached its highest point. Because the man who said, "These arrows cannot stop us," now stood before one of the greatest cities of the region, and the outcome would echo far beyond its walls. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think the turning point of this campaign was the desert crossing, the fall of the first fortress, the battle at Marj Rahit, or the psychological shift before Damascus? Comment below and share your thoughts. I read your comments, and they help guide the next episodes. If you felt the intensity of this campaign, if you saw how leadership, discipline, and belief shaped the outcome, support Islamic Conquest. Like this video. Share it with someone who loves real historical storytelling. And subscribe to Islamic Conquests so you don't miss the next chapter, because the story of Damascus and what follows becomes even more dramatic. History is not just about who had more soldiers. It is about who understood the moment. And this moment changed everything.